whether you recognize it or not. You folks out there, social media land, Twitter, Facebook, please go over to alexmorganshow.org. Check out the show. Subscribe to the YouTube channels. Make a purchase. Help fund this show. You can donate. I think I've actually got a live link this morning that's up in, should be in the top left hand corner, I'm thinking. But it's just been a really hectic morning. Been trying to get ready for this show. I've been gathering up every little thing that I could to share with y'all. Oh, excuse me. But there's no place I'd rather be than right here on the air this morning with you all. Anybody out there wants to call in this morning, that number 276-524-0047. We would love to hear from you. Again, that number 276-524-0047. Folks, have you heard about the big government shutdown? That's one of the things I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to cover the speech that Trump gave at a pro-life rally in Washington, D.C. yesterday. Both he and the vice president were there. I'm actually trying to have two streams going at once this morning, but I'm having a little difficulty, as I usually always do. Give me just a moment here. To get that number verified right quick. Like I said, I'm trying to get these live streams all going and all this and all that. And I think I think we're finally on the air, believe it or not. However, I'm not able to see very much. I'm not liking this app here very much. It's actually kind of a pain in the butt. Okay, there we are. That's got us going, I guess, finally. I apologize for the inconvenience. But, I'll tell you, just like I'm always talking about how the media and everybody else don't think that we have a memory, don't think that we know our buttholes from holes in the ground, all the credit that they give us. I wanted to play a couple of little sound bites here for you that I rounded up this morning.
Hold the Affordable Care Act hostage.
The Affordable Care Act would be held hostage.
Hold the running of government hostage.
We are not going to be held hostage by Mr. Cruz. The House Republicans are holding hostage
A bunch of terrorists who have taken the country hostage.
They're holding the whole country hostage.
Yep.
Amazing leadership in the House and Senate.
Holding 700,000 young dreamers hostage. Stop holding these kids hostage.
Hold the chip recipients hostage or the dreamers hostage.
Seniors and pregnant women and veterans hostage.
Holding the health care of 9 million children hostage.
It's inhumane that Congress continues to hold these young folks hostage. You've got to release the 800,000 dreamers you are holding hostage.
Nobody likes being held hostage. This isn't some hostage movie where you can just shoot the victim.
So bad. Republican leadership in the House and Senate are holding 700,000 young dreamers hostage. Stop holding these kids hostage.
Hold the chip recipients hostage or the dreamers hostage.
Seniors and pregnant women and veterans hostage.
Holding the health care of 9 million children hostage.
It's inhumane that Congress continues to hold these young folks hostage. You've got to release the 800,000 dreamers you are holding hostage.
Nobody likes being held hostage. This isn't some hostage movie where you can just shoot the victim.
So bad.
Get these live streams all going and don't know. There was that feedback. Yeah, I could really use a crew. Any way that you all could help me, I would graciously appreciate. We have got one viewer out there this morning. A good old howdy ho to you, neighbor, and it's good to see that you keeping it real right here on the channel against global isms. Need all the viewership and support that we can get. But right here is the headline up on Drudge right now. Shutdown 2018. As for the first time in history, a government which is controlled in the House by the GOP, controlled in the Senate, controlled in Congress, and controlled in the executive office, is looking at a government shutdown. And you ask the Democrats, a Democratic Party who bases their survival on a guarantee that there will be a poor class, an underclass in the United States that will forever be poor. Their survival relies drastically on this, and they cannot do without it. Without the lower class, the Democrats could not campaign on anything. If the poor people kept getting richer, just like they should, then what are the Democrats going to run on? I mean, they can't just promise the same old thing over and over and over. Oh wait, yeah they can. Yeah they can too. They can support their open borders. They can attack your religion. They can do whatever that they want to, because A, they're the leaders of our country. They're the ones who are the chosen ones. They're pretty much the chosen ones, if you will, when it comes to kingmakers, I guess you would call it. But let's get into this article. House passed bill to avoid a government shutdown, 6 in the Senate as funding deadline passes. A House passed stopgap bill that would avoid a government shutdown fizzled out in the Senate late Friday night, leaving Congress negotiating frantically as the midnight deadline to fund the government passed. The measure failed in a procedural vote by a 50-49 margin. 5 Democrats, Joe Manchin of West Virginia, Joe Dunley of Indiana, Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota, Doug Jones of Alabama, and Claire McCaskill of Missouri had backed it. 4 Republicans, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, Jeff Flake of Arizona, Rand Paul of Kentucky, and Mike Lee of Utah, opposed it. So did Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell for procedural reasons, or so they say. As nearly all Democrats and some Republicans opposed the measure that failed to work its way through Congress on Friday. Lawmakers saw government funding lapse, at least temporarily. The proposal that failed in the Senate would have funded the government through February 16th and reauthorized the popular Children's Health Insurance Program for 6 years. As the vote remained open into early Saturday morning, several bipartisan senators appeared to confer about a way forward. McConnell and Senate Minority Leader Chuck F.U. Schumer then walked off the Senate floor together, only to return and continue talks with other senators. Numerous senators crowded around Schumer as the clock hit midnight. Negotiations and potentially voters are expected to continue over the weekend and into next week. McConnell said he will offer an amendment to extend government funding until February 8th, which Senator Lindsey Graham championed on Friday. Many Democrats and some Republicans announced that they would vote against a short-term deal, criticizing the continued use of stopgap bills rather than funding the government through more long-term stable mechanisms. The minority party has also shown frustration about progress on talks towards a bipartisan immigration bill, which Democrats wanted to pass this week to protect hundreds of thousands of young undocumented immigrants from deportation. The parties also remain divided over long-term defense and non-defense spending levels. We're going to continue to do all we can, to quote Mitch McConnell, he said on the Senate floor after the shutdown started, going on to say, quote, "We'll vote again so the American people know who stands for them. And when our friends across the aisle remember it is they actually represent, we'll be ready to come together in a bipartisan discussion that will be necessary to clean up all this mess," end quote. The Senate needs to garner 60 votes for a spending bill, with 50 Republicans present. The majority GOP needed to win support from 10 or more Democrats, many of whom had threatened to oppose a short-term spending plan if they could not also pass a bill shielding young undocumented immigrants from deportation. Senator John McCain is away from Washington receiving treatment for cancer. The bill's apparent failure in the Senate was the last step towards the first government shutdown since 2013. In remarks following McConnell's comments, Chuck F.U. Schumer said he was, quote, willing to compromise, end quote, with Trump on an immigration agreement, and said he thought he had a deal with the president during a White House meeting on Friday. The senator contended that Trump backed off of a possible immigration solution when he faced pressure from conservatives. Quote, "Now all the problem is because Republican leadership can't go to yes, because President Trump refused to. Mr. President, President Trump, if you are listening, I am urging you, please take yes for an answer," end quote. He said, adding that the, quote, blame should crash entirely, end quote, on the president's shoulders. As funding looked set to lapse at midnight, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders released a scathing statement blaming Democrats for the shutdown. Quote, "We will not negotiate the status of unlawful immigrants while Democrats hold our lawful citizens hostage over their reckless demands. This is the behavior of the obstructionist losers, not legislators. When Democrats start paying our armed forces and first responders, will reopen negotiations on immigration reform," end quote, she said. Schumer has argued for a bill that extended funding for a few days rather than a month to give lawmakers more time to hash out a long-term plan. He met with President Donald Trump on Friday afternoon, and though he said their talks yielded, quote, "some progress," end quote, they did not reach a deal to keep the government open. On Thursday night, majority House Republican leaders had to keep nearly all their members in line in order to approve the short-term spending legislation by 230 to 197 margin, with Democrats putting up a nearly unified front against the measure. GOP lawmakers cleared bill that would fund the government for about a month. 11 Republicans opposed the legislation while 6 Democrats supported it. Trump had backed the short-term funding plan. Republicans this week put the burden on Senate Democrats to avoid a government shutdown. Quote, "No Democrats are needed if it is to pass in the Senate, but want illegal immigration and weak borders," end quote. Trump contended in a tweet Friday morning. Quote, "Shutdown coming, question mark. We need more Republican victories in 2018, end quote. House Speaker Paul Ryan used the line of attack before the House passed on the bill Thursday night. Quote, "Senator Schumer, do not shut down the federal government," end quote, the Wisconsin Republican said at a news conference. The Democrats facing the most political peril in the vote are those who face re-election this year in the states Trump won, including McCaskill, Heitkamp, Manchin, and Donnelly. If a shutdown occurs, McConnell intends to keep the Senate in session over the weekend and face those Democrats who face a series of difficult voters, according to Politico and NBC News. But I don't know if the government's going to shut down or not. I really don't. I hate to see it come to that, but
to all here in the Rose Garden and to the vat.
What can you do? I mean, I got a little business to attend to, folks. I'll be right straight back. Let me play this little video here of the president yesterday.
Gathering of Americans, young and old, on our National Mall at this very hour. Welcome back to Washington, D.C., and welcome back to the largest pro-life gathering in the United States of America, the 45th Annual March for Life. More than 240 years ago, our founders wrote words that have echoed through the ages. They declared these truths to be self-evident, that we are, each of us, endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. 45 years ago, the Supreme Court of the United States turned its back on the unalienable right to life. But in that moment, our movement began. A movement that continues to win hearts and minds. A movement defined by generosity, compassion, and love. And a movement that 1 year ago tomorrow inaugurated the most pro-life president in American history, President Donald Trump. From preventing taxpayer dollars from funding abortion overseas to empowering states to respect life in Title X, to nominating judges who will uphold our God-given liberties enshrined in the Constitution of the United States, this president has been a tireless defender of life and conscience in America. And today, President Trump will do even more to defend the most vulnerable in our society. My friends, life is winning in America because love saves lives. And know, as you march for life, that your compassion, your persistence, your activism, and your prayers are saving lives. And this pro-life generation should never doubt. We are with you. This president stands with you. And he who said, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you," is with you as well. And I believe with all of my heart, with your continued dedication and compassion, with pro-life majorities in the Congress, with President Donald Trump in this White House, and with God's help, we will restore the sanctity of life to the center of American law. And so, with a grateful heart, on this 45th annual March for Life, it is now my high honor and distinct privilege to introduce to you the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump.
Thank you very much. That's so nice. Sit, please. We have tens of thousands of people watching us right down the road. Tens of thousands. So I congratulate you. And at least we picked a beautiful day. You can't get a more beautiful day. I want to thank our Vice President, Mike Pence, for that wonderful introduction. I also want to thank you and Karen for being true champions for life. Thank you. And thank Karen. Today I'm honored and really proud to be the first president to stand with you here at the White House to address the 45th March for Life. That's very, very special. 45th March for Life. And this is a truly remarkable group. Today, tens of thousands of families, students, and patriots, and really just great citizens gather here in our nation's capital. You come from many backgrounds, many places, but you all come for one beautiful cause: to build a society where life is celebrated, protected, and cherished. The March for Life is a movement born out of love. You love your families, you love your neighbors, you love our nation, and you love every child, born and unborn, because you believe that every life is sacred, that every child is a precious gift from God. We know that life is the greatest miracle of all. We see it in the eyes of every new mother who cradles that wonderful, innocent, and glorious newborn child in her loving arms. I want to thank every person here today and all across our country who works with such big hearts and tireless devotion to make sure that parents have the care and support they need to choose life. Because of you, tens of thousands of Americans have been born and reached their full God-given potential. Because of you. You're living witnesses of this year's March for Life theme, and that theme is Love Saves Lives. As you all know, Roe versus Wade has resulted in some of the most permissive abortion laws anywhere in the world. For example, in the United States, it's one of only 7 countries to allow elective late-term abortions along with China, North Korea, and others. Right now, in a number of states, the laws allow a baby to be born from his or her mother's womb in the 9th month. It is wrong. It has to change. Americans are more and more pro-life. You see that all the time. In fact, only 12% of Americans support abortion on demand at any time. Under my administration, we will always defend the very first right in the Declaration of Independence, and that is the right to life. Tomorrow will mark exactly 1 year since I took the oath of office. And I will say our country is doing really well. Our economy is perhaps the best it's ever been. You look at the job numbers, you look at the companies pouring back into our country, you look at the stock market at an all-time high, unemployment, 17-year low, unemployment for African-American workers at the lowest mark in the history of our country, unemployment for Hispanic at a record low in history, unemployment for women, think of this, at an 18-year low. We're really proud of what we're doing. And during my first week in office, I reinstated a policy first put in place by President Ronald Reagan, the Mexico City policy. I strongly supported the House of Representatives' pain-capable bill, which would end painful late-term abortions nationwide. And I call upon the Senate to pass this important law and send it to my desk for signing. On the National Day of Prayer, I signed an executive order to protect religious liberty. Very proud of that. Today, I'm announcing that we have just issued a new proposal to protect conscience rights and religious freedoms of doctors, nurses, and other medical professionals. So important. I have also just reversed the previous administration's policy that restricted states' efforts to direct Medicaid funding away from abortion facilities that violate the law. We are protecting the sanctity of life and the family as the foundation of our society. But this movement can only succeed with the heart and the soul and the prayer of the people. Here with us today is Mary Anna Donadio from Greensboro, North Carolina. Where is Mary Anna? Hello, come on up here, Mary Anna. Come. Nice to see you. Mary Anna was 17 when she found out she was pregnant. At first, she felt like she had no place to turn. But when she told her parents, they responded with total love, total affection, total support. Great parents? Great? I thought you were going to say that. I had to be careful. Mary Anna bravely chose life and soon gave birth to her son. She named him Benedict, which means blessing. Mary Anna was so grateful for her parents' love and support that she felt called to serve those who were not as fortunate as her. She joined with others in her community to start a maternity home to care for homeless women who were pregnant. It's great. They named it Room at the Inn. Today, Mary Anna and her husband Don are the parents of 6 beautiful children, and her eldest son Benedict and her daughter Maria join us here today. Where are they? Come on over. That's great. Over the last 15 years, Room at the Inn has provided housing, child care, counseling, education, and job training to more than 400 women. Even more importantly, it has given them hope. It has shown each woman that she is not forgotten, that she is not alone, and she really now has a whole family of people who will help her succeed. That hope is the true gift of this incredible movement that brings us together today. It is the gift of friendship, the gift of mentorship, and the gift of encouragement, love, and support. Those are beautiful words, and those are beautiful gifts. And most importantly of all, it is the gift of life itself. That is why we march. That is why we pray.
That's right, Donald Trump. Folks, you got to admit, this is probably the first president that we've ever had in the whole United States history who took God and good and just that spirit of goodness and common sense and rightfulness and just drew all the energy that he could from it and just benefited top just as much as he could. You gotta admit there are those of us that are chosen by God for, you know, certain tasks, certain jobs. We all have special gifts, and it's really God given. I mean, there's no other thing nothing else you can say about it. It's given to you by God, and when you have a very special gift like that, you should use it and not waste it. It should actually be a sin to waste such a great gift. I've got a new YouTube channel. It's called Freedom Internet Media, or Freedom Internet Radio Media, excuse me. You can look for it, subscribe. I'd like to get some other podcasters on board with me. Maybe have anywhere from 6 to 8 hours a day for, you know, a day's broadcasts. Again, I realize I'm nowhere near the best YouTuber that I could be. I'm nowhere near the greatest talk show host I could be. Okay, I know that. I don't need anybody to tell me that. I have been talked to pretty bad on here. Well, you know, nothing I couldn't handle, but it just goes to show you the level of disrespect that people have for you. They don't want you to succeed. At least a good number of them don't. They would rather see you fail than succeed any day. And I can't help but ask myself over and over and over, how could you be for yourself, for humanity, for human life, and not be for your brother, for your neighbor, for your friends, for hell, for your enemies even. I mean, really. It just blows my mind. How you can't be for yourself and against everybody else, because that's very, very unethical. Just in itself. Think about it.
Press for answers on that worst mass shooting in U.S. history. Well, we learned a little more today. Very interesting. After refusing to answer our questions on Wednesday, Clark County Sheriff.
Let that video load here just for a minute. This is a video that I really wanted to share with you all. It's from Laura Ingraham. She was talking about the Vegas shooting on Fox News recently. Thought I'd play it for y'all.
Joe Lombardo held a press conference. He did it earlier today, and he said they still have no motive for the massacre, and added this about reports of a potential accomplice to Stephen Paddock.
I know and believe there was only one suspect who killed 58 people and injured hundreds more. There was only one person responsible, and that was Stephen Paddock. He had lost a significant amount of his monetary wealth in close proximity to 1 October, and that may have a driving factor associated with it. We do not anticipate charges being brought forward against Mary Lou Danley. As to any other people, the FBI has an ongoing case against an individual of federal interest.
Individual federal interest, very, very interesting. Looks like a grand jury may have already been convened to pursue this someone else. Whose name we don't know, connected to this horrific crime, but he says it's not Mary Lou Danley.
As to any other people, the FBI has an ongoing case against an individual of federal interest. I will not be able to elaborate on that statement.
There you have it, folks. They're looking for another suspect. They don't want to come out and tell you that. I don't know how many of y'all that's done much research on it, but I'll tell you this, if you done little to none at all, you would think that they were at least two shooters. And that's just me, that's just my opinion from watching YouTube videos. So go back and listen to the interviews of the witnesses.
Another lovely tidbit of information, this freak Paddock had multiple photos of child pornography on his computer. Oh, and by the way, officials announced just this week that Paddock's body was cremated and his ashes sent to his brother in Florida. Wow. Joining us now to try to piece this all together, former LAPD Detective Mark Furman is in Sandpoint, Idaho, and he's been following all these developments. And in Las Vegas, the author of The Power of Relentless and the host of War Now, the Wayne Allen Root Show on USA Radio, Wayne Allen Root is here. Wayne, let's start with you. You've been on this from the beginning. Las Vegas is your hometown. From the beginning, you've raised questions about a possible terrorist connection to this case that the feds kind of moved quickly to, discount early on. What did that very odd Lombardo press conference today tell you? He looked very uncomfortable.
I think every Lombardo press conference has been odd, and he...
Another lovely tidbit of information, this freak Paddock had multiple photos of child pornography on his computer. Oh, and by the way, officials announced just this week that Paddock's body was cremated and his ashes sent to his brother in Florida. Wow. Joining us now to try to piece this all together, former LAPD Detective Mark Furman is in Sandpoint, Idaho, and he's been following all these developments. And in Las Vegas, the author of The Power of Relentless and the host of War Now, the Wayne Allen Root Show on USA Radio, Wayne Allen Root is here. Wayne, let's start with you. You've been on this from the beginning. Las Vegas is your hometown. From the beginning, you've raised questions about a possible terrorist connection to this case that the feds kind of moved quickly to, discount early on. What did that very odd Lombardo press conference today tell you? He looked very uncomfortable.
I think every Lombardo press conference has been odd, and he...
It's not going to play for me. I'll sit here and give this video a second to reload. I'll tell you folks, what I hate most about doing this podcast, it's being slowed down, being hindered, and not being able to come here and talk to y'all.
Pressed and pressed for answers on that.
And give my full beat, just give you me. Give you my thoughts, my opinions. I've always got distractions going on. If you can't hear it in the background, I got about 2 little puppies crying after me, wanting attention. Then I got another one in there. He's the biggest baby of every one of them. He weighs about 5 pounds, and he's got a bigger mouth than any one of them, than all of them put together, really. And yeah, they're all a handful, but I love them, and I wouldn't take nothing for them. But let's get back to this video.
Discount early on. What did that very odd Lombardo press conference today tell you? He looked very uncomfortable.
I think every Lombardo press conference has been odd, and he always looks uncomfortable with the FBI staring him down behind him, and we aren't getting the answers we deserve. That's all I've ever said. I don't know that there's a terror connection. Nobody knows that. But I do know that we have not gotten the right answers. The people of Vegas who call my talk show all the time, no one believes what we've heard from the FBI. No one believes what we've heard from the police. And by the way, it's awful strange that our president, who I love, I'm one of the biggest fighters on behalf of Donald Trump, but he loves to wade into controversy and crisis and chaos. And Donald Trump has said nothing about this, which leads me to believe the government knows much more about this than they're willing to let on. So I think that there's so much more that we're going to learn in the future that we just don't know right now. We're not getting the right answers from the people in authority.
Mark Furman, we know in the days right after the shooting, ISIS and certain ISIS websites had claimed that Stephen Paddock had converted to Islam 6 months earlier. Now, we have no evidence that he had in that photo, the only photo of him. He has, has a shot glass. If he converted to Islam, he would probably wouldn't be drinking, but maybe he would be. But could this be? Could there be something here, or is it irresponsible even to raise that possibility, given what we know now?
Well, look at this. ISIS will take a claim of any mass murder, and in hopes that nobody else will claim it, then they get credit for it, and then they are, of course, terrorists, and that creates terror. When you look at this, you have to look at the evidence. That's all we can deal with is the evidence. You can make theories, you can dream things up, you can hope things to be, but until you have evidence, you can't make any kind of conclusion that that's what occurred. So the evidence here is we had a sole gunman that actually supplied, put in action, set up, and shot these people from the Mandalay on the 32nd floor. And that is all that they can conclude at this point.
Mark,
if there is a conspirator someday,
But Mark, you know what? I just keep going back to fundamental questions. My fundamental questions are photographic evidence, videotape. I know when you check into every hotel, and Wayne, you can chime in on this. You are videoed every step of the way in Las Vegas. There are cameras everywhere. Everywhere. Why have we not seen any of that material? I agree with you. Evidence, that rules. But in the absence of transparency, what are people to think? 58 Americans are dead. And we're supposed to believe a guy who's 60-something years old was running between two pedestals to shoot. People who were on the ground were reporting that there were two different. They thought there were two different shooters. Multiple witnesses said that. And that the guy is like now a sprinter running between gun positions. All of that to me, again, you're an expert, Mark. But when the hotel doesn't release the check-in photos, video, nothing. And the guy has the hard drive is erased. All of that is odd to me. That's just as a regular person. That's odd, Mark. Correct. Then Wayne.
Well, Lombardo, he actually stated that they looked, I think, 25,000 feet or 25,000 video segments that they actually reviewed. And you can see the volume of work that they've had to actually go through in the last 3 months. But in all that video, we have, once again, you do not have a homicide investigation and a prosecution, but you have civil litigation, you have discovery there, the private property, the MGM. Now it's the evidence, and the police are probably, and most probably, going to be sued along with Mandalay Bay in a security issue and a failure to do this and a failure to do that, because that's what attorneys do. So they're not going to share this and pollute the jury pool until those issues are settled.
Laura, can I jump in here?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I would say it's not 1963, okay? Maybe Americans believe the JFK story in 1963, but I could tell you no one I talked to in Las Vegas or anywhere in this country, because my show is national now, none of the callers believed this story. I could tell you it makes no sense that the police in Las Vegas did not put this in the hands of the homicide division with 35 seasoned homicide cops who've studied murders their whole life. They put it in the hands of a small division of 5 police officers who study accidental shootings by the police. I'd love anyone, including Mark, to explain that. You can't explain to me how a guy at the age of 60 wakes up one day and becomes Rambo, and you can't explain to me how within days of this shooting, suddenly Jared Kushner was sent to Saudi Arabia in a secret visit, and that's a fact. Politico outed this visit by President Trump. And when he gets to Saudi Arabia, he gets a diplomatic pouch, the king of Saudi Arabia. Within days, 300 princes have been arrested.
Guys,
have been put in high security prison.
We'll have you back, Wayne. We got to wrap because we're going to black, unfortunately.
Why that happened.
So I'm not the only one who believes that there was more than one shooter. Thank God.
The Mexican drug war has become a lot bloodier than most Americans understand because it's basically never covered here. Here are the facts. More than 23,000 people were murdered in Mexico just last year as drug cartels continue to fight each other and the Mexican government. Meanwhile, drugs continue to pour across the American border in massive amounts, killing tens of thousands of Americans. Now, fear of letting this chaos into our country is one of the reasons the Trump administration has called for tougher immigration laws and a border wall. Not everybody is on board, to put it mildly. We recently discussed this issue with Jorge Ramos. He's a Univision anchor and champion of the oppressed south of the border. Here it is. When last we spoke, you said that the United States has 11 million illegal immigrants within its borders because of supply and demand, and it's America's fault that these people are here. They were lured by jobs. But there's a flip side to it, which is that the remittances paid by Mexican citizens back to Mexico are the largest source of cash in Mexico, higher than its oil export revenue. So Mexico desperately needs American money sent back by illegal aliens here. Why shouldn't we blame the government of Mexico for that?
Well, first of all, I don't call them illegal aliens. No human being is illegal. Let me just start
Except the people who are here illegally, they're illegal.
Well, they're here, but we don't call illegal companies those who hire them. So I don't use the term illegal. You can use it if you want to.
It's actually the legal term in U.S. government documents, so I'm just going to go ahead and go with the accurate description. But
okay,
let's get to the point.
And I'll go with the moral point of view that you should not call anyone illegal.
Except those who are illegal, and I'm going to go ahead and not be bullied and just call them what they are. But the point is, look, the government of Mexico couldn't exist without them. That's the point.
Well, they do get billions of dollars from Mexican citizens in the United States. That is true. But the point is that undocumented immigrants are here, Tucker, because of us. We need them. You might want to admit it or not, but we need them. It's simply a matter of supply and demand. And whenever you go to get a service or to a hotel or to a restaurant, we are being served by them.
I know you're big on lecturing Americans on their moral failings, but what about the moral failings of the Mexican government, which is corrupt, parts under control by the drug cartels, it doesn't serve the needs of its own people, and it hasn't for almost 100 years, and yet it's 100% America's fault and not the fault of the Mexican government, which uses illegal immigration as a pressure relief valve? That's what's happening, and you know it.
Yeah, I think you chose the wrong guest to defend the Mexican government, because I've been criticizing the Mexican government for decades. The Mexican government, it is really corrupt. In the last year, I was checking the numbers. More than 20,000 people have been killed because of violence in Mexico. And we're going to have elections in Mexico on July the 1st, and I hope that changes. But I'm no one to defend the Mexican government. There's a lack of democracy, there's a lack of transparency, there's a lot of corruption. There's really nothing to defend about the President Peña Nieto.
But in effect you are, because you're saying that our illegal immigration problems are our fault, when in fact abetting illegal immigration is the policy of the Mexican government. The single largest source of heroin in the United States is Mexico. The leading cause of death for people under 50 is heroin OD. So why shouldn't we be angry at the government of Mexico for allowing this to happen here?
Well, because there's a different way of seeing that. You are seeing it as Mexico is responsible for the drugs coming to this country, and the way people in Mexico and the way people in Colombia and in other Latin American countries, the way they see it is that as long as you have 20 to 25 million Americans who use continuously illegal drugs, there's again a problem of supply and demand. And it doesn't matter what you do at the border, it doesn't matter if you have a huge wall, drugs are going to keep on coming. So
that's what the drug dealer tells himself to sleep at night. He says, it's not my fault, it's the junkie's fault. Right, so if you flood a community with illegal drugs, do you think drug use and ODs go up? I mean, that's a rhetorical question, because the answer is, of course, yes. So why blame the victim here? I don't understand. No, it's not the way to see it. It's the empirical truth.
If you have 20 or 25 million Americans who've used an illegal drug in the last month, what are you going to do? I mean, unless nothing's going to change.
Because if I dropped a ton of heroin into your zip code, do you think you would see a higher rate of heroin addiction? And do you think that would be the fault of your children and your neighbors? No, it would be my fault.
It is not only that you drop it. The fact is that people are asking for that. Illegal drug users.
15-year-olds are desperate for cheap heroin. No, I mean, look, let's be honest. Not building a wall is not making the problem better. People are dying as a result of it. The wall won't help.
The wall would be completely useless.
How do you know that? So let's take a look at walls through history. How many have been completely useless? Let's see, none.
Let me give you just a few arguments here.
Okay.
According to Pew Research Center, almost 45% of all undocumented immigrants come by plane or with a visa. So it doesn't matter how long or wide.
Almost how many? What percent?
Almost 45%. You can check it.
So what about no? I think that number's right. I think that number's right. But there's still 500,000 people, more than, apprehended at the border every year on foot. That doesn't account for all the people who made it across. You have hundreds of thousands of people coming, some unknown number, coming across with no wall, and you have tons and tons of drugs. So why is it immoral to try and stop that?
Because the idea that you are giving your audience and the idea that President Trump is giving the American people is that we are being invaded by Mexico. That is not true. More Mexicans actually are leaving the United States.
I'm not saying we're being invaded. I'm saying tons of drugs and hundreds of thousands of people are... I'm not saying there is. I'm saying tons of heroin and hundreds of thousands of people are coming across, and many of them will be stopped by the wall. So why is it immoral to put a lock on our front door? I don't understand. Why should we be scolded for wanting to protect our own country? I don't get that.
I agree with you. Every single country has the right to secure borders. I have no problem with that.
But you're arguing against the wall.
That the wall that President Trump wants to build and that apparently you're supporting would be completely useless. First of all, there's no invasion coming from Mexico. Second, it's not true that hundreds of thousands of people are coming to this country because the undocumented population has remained stable in this country for the last decade, and third, Mexico, of course, won't pay for it.
First of all, we don't really know what the undocumented so-called population is because they're here illegally. No. As a factual matter, we don't.
It's true. We do. The Census Bureau, the government.
The point is, you've got 11 million at least. Could be 20, we don't know. But there are more than 10 million that are here illegally.
They're here illegally, 11 million.
We'll say 11 million. Those people are living proof that we don't have control of our border, and I hope that you'll just sum it up for me in one sentence because we're running out of time. Why is it a bad idea to build a wall to stop some percentage of those people, some percentage of the heroin, when every other wall in every other country on planet Earth has had an effect in stopping people and drugs from getting into the country it separates? I don't understand.
Because it's a myth to believe that the border right now is more insecure. It's a myth. And then, as long as you have millions of consumers of illegal drugs in this country, drugs are going to keep on coming from ports of entry or through tunnels. That's on one hand.
Let's just build the wall there and we'll see. We can come back and kind of assess its effectiveness.
If you come by plane,
okay, that's great. All right, thank you.
And there you have it, folks. They don't want to build a wall, but the majority, well, I think the majority of Americans do want a wall, but the people who oppose it are definitely the people who benefit from it, and that's common sense. I mean, you know, anybody can see that. Anybody can see it, folks. Anybody. Meanwhile, over at CNN, Deadline.com is reporting that CNN boss Jeff Zucker eyed by Disney for top ESPN job. I'm sure that he would fit in well at ESPN. The great communist supporters, socialist supporters that they are. In this article, it says, Zucker, whose current CNN contract I hear is up at the end of the year, is an intriguing proposition. He was able to reverse CNN's linear ratings declines even before the Donald Trump-fueled political coverage rating bonanza. He also successfully built the cable news network's digital brand, overseeing a big online expansion. Those are things Disney wants to see ESPN achieve. The network's subscriber losses have been dragging down Disney's stock price, even though primetime viewership is up. Disney also has been looking to better monetize ESPN and its programming in a multi-platform universe, including via a recently announced ESPN branded OTT service. In addition to spearheading CNN's ratings resurgence, Zucker has been able to grow a slew of media stars, turning Don Lemon, Jake Tapper, Chris Cuomo into household names. Whatever. The only reason they're household names is because they're liars, and they said SHIT whole 190 some times in a 24-hour span last Friday before last, excuse me. But yeah, CNN's no household name, okay? This is from thebostonglobe.com, as Elizabeth Warren's Native American problem goes beyond politics. There's a ghost hunting Washington. There's a ghost hunting Elizabeth Warren as she ramps up for a possible 2020 presidential bid and a re-election campaign in Massachusetts this year. Her enduring and undocumented claims of Native American ancestry. Warren says now, as she has from the first days of her public life, that she based her assertions on family lore, on her reasonable trust in what she was told about her ancestry as a child. Quote, "I know who I am," end quote, she said in a recent interview with the Globe. But that self-awareness may not be enough as her political ambitions blossom. She's taken flack from the right for years as a, quote, fake Indian, end quote, including taunts from President Trump, who derivatively calls her, quote, Pocahontas, end quote. That clamor from the right will only grow with her increasing prominence. And more telling, there's also discomfort on the left and among some tribal leaders and activists that Warren has a political blind spot when it comes to murkiness surrounding her story of her heritage, which blew up as an issue in her victorious 2012 Massachusetts Senate race in recent months. Daily Show host Trevor Noah mocked her for claiming Native American ancestry, and the liberal website Think Progress published a scathing criticism of her by a Cherokee activist who said she should apologize. As Warren is mentioned as a serious presidential contender in 2020, even some who should be her natural ally says Warren has displayed a stubborn unwillingness to address the gap between the stories she was told of Native Americans in her family tree and a dearth of hard evidence to back it up. It's a disconnect that has lingered unresolved in the public sphere for more than 5 years. Warren says she grew up understanding that forebears in her mother's family had Cherokee and Delaware blood, but examinations by genealogists of documents including birth, marriage, and death records have shown no conclusive proof of Native American ancestry. While it may be easy to dismiss Trump's continued Twitter attacks as bigotry, which has been Warren's response thus far, the view of more sympathetic critics is that she is leaving herself vulnerable by not clearing the air in a definitive way. Their fear is that the issue could act as a drag on her profile as she considers whether to seek the Democratic nomination for president. Quote, "A strategic perspective taking the live step of taking responsibility and an apology even, while noting that it was not her intention to harm anyone, is important," end quote, said Tom Bonnier, CEO of the Democratic polling firm Target Smart, going on to say, quote, "That will change. Will that change votes? Question mark. I don't think that doing so will lose her votes." End quote. If Warren seeks to tackle the issue, there are no easy options. Some tribe members want her to apologize to Native Americans for claiming heritage without solid evidence. Tribes across America have spent centuries denouncing whites who claim Indian DNA without a clear basis, claims they find deeply offensive. Another path includes pursuing stronger outreach to the tribes with whom she claims to share kinship, a strategy that she began to employ. This is too fraught as some Native American leaders have resentful that she has done, in their estimation, little to help tribes as a powerful senator. Quote, "She's not part of the Cherokee community," end quote, said Chad Smith, who was the principal chief of the Oklahoma-based Cherokee Nation from 1999 to 2011, going on to say, quote, "She hasn't reached out, she hasn't come here and participated much," end quote. That article goes on for another day and a half. You can find that article at bostonglobe.com or at drudgereport.com. I'm going to go ahead and jump off the air this morning. I've got a few things I've got to do early today and later on this afternoon. I hope to be back as soon as possible, though, right here on Freedom Internet Radio Media, your home for true patriotism in the war against the globalists. If you haven't already, please click that subscribe button, click that donate button, go to alexmorganshow.org, make a purchase, make a donation. You can contact me there. You can also email the Alex Morgan Show at gmail.com or freedominternetradio@gmail.com. Folks, I love y'all. Thanks for tuning in this morning. God bless. I hope you have a wonderful and warm weekend. Thanks, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.